Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. All right, the Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Jennifer Elia. I love that last name. Jennifer is a two-time Amazon best-selling author, blogger, and content marketer extraordinaire. She enjoys spending time with her family and getting grounded in her garden each spring. I welcome you to join us and listen to this journey that Jennifer is sharing today. This is a story of perseverance, heart, and what it looks like to never give up. Welcome, lady.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm well.
Awesome. I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out with us and share a little bit about your journey and what you're doing in the world at this moment. So, how are you? How are things?
I'm doing well. Things are busy, which is good. You know, it's a blessing to be busy, but it's also hard to keep up sometimes.
I hear ya. I hear ya on that. Well, like I said, I so appreciate you hanging out with us. I would love to just kind of give the floor to you and kind of allow you to talk about your life and some of the challenges, some of the victories that you've had throughout your life, and where you are now and how you've really evolved into what you're doing now and who you are now, if that's okay with you.
Sure, sounds great.
Awesome.
Hi. So, I always had this dream of being a writer, and everybody told me you'll never make money doing that. And so there were a lot of things that went on. End up being a college professor, even though I said never be a teacher. And life went on, got married, had kids. And when I had my third child, they pressured me to come back really quickly. And I just wasn't ready. And I cried through like every single day at work. And he cried through every single day at the babysitter. And my mom was on hospice. And I just had like this thing click, like, this is my life. I'm not promised tomorrow. Like, I need to build the life that I want. And this is not what I want. Like, I don't want to be crying all day, worrying about my mom and my kids. So I had been writing part-time, ghostwriting and blogging for people. And I decided, you know what, I need to find a way to make this work and just stay home. And so I quit my job, and it was scary, but I stayed home with them and started working from home and gradually built up a business. And I was humming along. I was enjoying it. It was great. And then 2020 hit. And as we know, that was a challenge for everyone. But the content marketing industry completely changed that year. My husband was a realtor, and with everything locked down, like, his business collapsed. And so we were sitting there thinking, like, what are we going to do? And in the midst of that, I had a massive cyber attack. And so as a professional writer, it was devastating because
how did you have a cyber attack? What happened?
I've talked to people at Google. I've talked to a cyber security expert. Like, nobody really knows exactly what happened, but somehow they got into my Google, not just my Gmail, but they got into the browser and went device to device and slowly wiped out everything that I had and the devices. So what I had backed up on my computer and backed up on the cloud and saved here was all gone. All of my social media presence was gone. Everything, all my contacts I had saved, gone. In fact, I didn't have any way to communicate with people or buy anything for 3 weeks because my bank accounts had gotten frozen because of it. My phones were wiped.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And this was right in the midst of the lockdown. So, you already have that, you're stuck home. And so there was a lot of soul searching there. And my husband and I sitting there saying, like, what are we going to do? And we really had to reevaluate our life and realize that we weren't living where we want, going back to that, like, we don't not promise tomorrow. We weren't living where we wanted to live. We weren't doing what we wanted to do. We had all these dreams that we had from the time we were teenagers because we grew up together, and we just weren't living them. And so we said, well, you know what? I can work anywhere. Like, where do we want to live? And so that's what we did for 6 months, was we looked for where we wanted to live on the internet because we couldn't go anywhere. And we bought a house without seeing it. And we packed up our family and moved out here and started living the life that we always wanted to live. And we built a homestead. And I rebuilt my business from nothing. All I had left was LinkedIn. And I think it was because I forgot I even had a LinkedIn account. So there was no activity on there. And whoever hacked in just didn't even realize that it was important. So I had LinkedIn and I started networking, finding networks. And I said, I'm going to do this. And so that's what we did. Like, I built my business to support my family, and we live where we want to live and how we want to live. So that was about a year and a half now since we did that.
Wow. Crazy.
Yes.
So I want to ask you a question. And the reason I want to ask this is because for a lot of people, getting hacked and losing everything would be very traumatic. Not to give or take towards what actually happened in your life, but what I would like to ask you is, how did you handle that? And how long did it really take for you to say, it is what it is, got to move on? Because some people would stay stuck in that for well into a year.
It took me a good few weeks to process what was happening. But I'm stubborn and I'm a problem solver. And I said, and also I have 4 kids. So, like, we had to get food on the table. I didn't have a year to just like shelter in place and not do anything. So there was that, but it was also that I'm not going to let this stop me. Like, I know that this is something that I've always wanted to do and that I can do. And I just wasn't giving up. So it took, like, the first 3 weeks were kind of a blur. And then I powered through it, and I kind of crashed at like month 6. I went into like an emotional crash, like it suddenly hit me. There are books that I've written that I don't own a manuscript to. I mean, they're on Amazon, and I've heard that there's a way that you can download, but like, I don't physically own a copy, or, I can't go into my database and say, here's my book, I'm going to work on it.
Wow.
And so, like, it did hit me, but I was, again, I was like, I can't stay there, because and really it was a door that opened amazing opportunities. And so it was horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I don't know that I'd choose to go through it, but the results of it pushed me to up-level my life in a way that I never would have. And it changed my family's life. It changed my business. And it was a good thing in the end.
Wow. I so appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of times people do get stuck. And whether survival or need to survive or kids or whatever, pulling themselves out of a situation like that can be mentally difficult and or impossible as they feel it to be. So, hearing that and realizing, and this was your whole life. It's not even like you're just a person who, some people are in today's society that don't really do a whole lot on social media or on, they work or whatever, but they don't have your life is like on the computer. And having to pick up and just keep going is crazy that you were able to get through it that quickly. I so appreciate you saying that. What would you consider to be your biggest failure?
I think my biggest failure was that for a long time, even though I was helping people with social media and I was helping people with online presence, I completely neglected my own and didn't build up like a database and stuff. I went mostly on referral for like 10 years. And so when I lost everything, I wasn't just starting from scratch. I was like redefining, like, how am I going to market myself now? Because I can't go by referral. I have no access to, the Facebook group or this or that, or, I can email this client, but everything all those systems that I had in place of going from one client to the next or picking up new clients were gone. And I had to start over. And I regret that I hadn't done for myself what I'd done for other people, even though probably most of that would have been lost, but I still would have had that structure in place. And I had to kind of scramble to get it off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. When did it sounds as if you were kind of dabbling, I mean, I'm just assuming here in the self-development and personal growth well before this, because you got over it so quickly. I might be mistaken, but when did you actually kind of dive into, mental, emotional health?
I think there was a very traumatic period in my life where it felt like everything was falling apart. And I had a new baby that I had waited, like we had been trying for 4 years to have. And so it seemed like we were at the top of our game and we had all these things in place. And then in a matter of weeks, it all fell apart. My mom got terminally ill with cancer. My dad died suddenly. I was left as a caretaker with babies of my own. And so there was so much going on. And I realized that my parents had been, my mom especially was a planner. And, they had so many plans for retirement that they were looking forward to. And that was always their goal. Like they talked about it every day about, what they would do and how they go to the golf course. And my dad wanted to drive the water trucks. If you've been to Florida, you know what water trucks are, to water the plants. And they never made it there. Like neither one of them ever retired. And it was this light bulb moment of, I can't keep living, I've lived my life to like get through high school, get through college, get married, have the baby. And it's always been like, we'll get to the next thing. And I am a planner, but I realize I can't just live in my plans. I need to live in today. And I need to take charge of today and not just say, well, I'll wait till things get better. Because that 10 years down the road might not happen. Yeah. And then I'll have all this time that I've wasted. And so I don't want to waste time. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. For the people that are watching live right now and for the people that are going to be watching on the replay, do you remember like what the first steps were that you kind of took towards that thought process that you're talking about, towards really bettering and evolving to what you mentally were visualizing for yourself? Do you remember?
I don't know that I do, because it came after to say that I went through that well, it came out well on the other side, but in the beginning, It was a very dark period. And it took until a few years later, looking back, to realize just how deep in that pit I was. But there was just a moment where I had a group of friends that, supported me, and I'm very grateful for, and a community, and a church family. And at some point, the fake it till you make it, I just kept and thought, I have these kids, and I have this family, and I just need to keep going. And so I was waking up and just doing it, but not really knowing what I was doing. And at some point, I just hit that point where I had to just crumble and feel all of it and realize that, I'm not okay, but I need to find a way to be okay.
Yeah.
And that was hard. But then, at the time, that was awful. I felt like being numb was better. Mm-hmm. But looking back at all that time when I was just numb and don't even remember, that was really harder.
Yeah. Do you remember if you had any mentors or any books or anything that you were kind of diving into to figure all that out? Or
Um,
friends, family? I know you mentioned church.
yes. I was in a Bible study and I'm trying to remember what it was, but it was by Beth Moore. But the whole premise of it was like breaking free of these chains. And, again, it was one of those things that I was going through, and that Bible study was where my closest friends were. And it was like my dose of sanity every week.
Awesome.
I'd go there and they had childcare, and the girls that were in there just loved on me. And so we'd have fancy coffee and talk about the Bible. And there was just this moment when I, like it just clicked. And something in it just spoke to me that it was like, this is where I am. Like I have to actually admit that I'm in this pit. And I've always prided myself on being a problem solver, and getting through things. And I'm not getting through it. Like maybe on the outside, it looked like I'm getting through it, but I'm not solving problems and I'm not getting through it. I'm sinking deeper and nobody realizes how deep I am.
Yeah.
So I would say that I really can't pin it. There was so much going on. But I think that was one of those pivotal things that planted the seed, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that you're mentioning community is great, because I think a lot of times when we are at least for me, when I'm going through stuff like that, I tend to isolate,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of want to keep to yourself and not talk to anybody, not share anything. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that you have to share all the stuff, but just being in and amongst, a community who's
Yeah.
similar to what you're doing or where you're trying to get helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
finding something that's, your niche, or something that
Mm-hmm.
you appreciate, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
throwing yourself into that community is helpful. Even if it's, not biblical, it could be knitting, it could be,
Yeah.
sewing community, or a book. What is that? Like a book,
Book club.
a book club.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Oprah. I'm like, what does she call that thing?
Yeah.
A book club. And I've been a fan of those. I was doing mystery book clubs
Mm-hmm.
years ago in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. And that was kind of a way for me to kind of escape,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, and fall into like a fantasy
Yes.
type of arena with other people who appreciated that. And I found a few close friends in that mix. So I think that that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
What's the number one lesson you've learned about life?
Not that it's, a lot of people say it's too short. It's not that it's too short, it's that we waste it. um, all of us are given a certain amount of days, and we have no idea how many of those days are. And we can't waste that time worrying like when that day will be. We need to just make the most of this day. And there was a 3-year point in my life where I wrote like 5 eulogies for people that were very, very close to me. My parents, my grandparents. And I realized in doing that, it was a hard thing, but it was kind of cathartic to go through there and walk through everything. It was like because I'm a writer, that was how I processed my grief. But I thought like when it's me, like when I'm gone, what will people say about me? And that's something that I think of a lot. Like, what will my children remember about the life that I built for them? What will my clients say about the experience that they had? And it's not even so much that like a death, but like they move on, right? Like they finish the coaching program, or we finish the project, then they move on. And so it's not that I've cut them out of my life, but they're not in. So what will they say? What is that legacy that I'm leaving? And the legacy is never, the boxes that you check off, or the calls that you have, or even how much is in your bank account. That's not the legacy. The legacy is that impact that you built.
Yeah.
And just thinking about how it's the little things that you remember. It's not the big, like we always, especially with kids, you think of like, I want to do these big things, right?
Mhm.
Or my business, I want to do these big things. And those are great, but that's not what that's not what they grieve. That's not what they remember, what has an impact. It's all those little things. It's how you show up for them. It's that, like that personal branding, really, it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. Like that is what we need to strive for more than, and I have big goals, but the big goals are great for today. But really, if you're looking at that legacy impact, it's those little things that you do that don't even show up on your goal sheet that make that difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love that you're talking about your children. And, you know, I'm in the community this community, it was originally built on narcissistic abuse. And a lot of the females that were in and amongst the group were single moms, either separated or what have you, and low on money. And one of the biggest things that I said was, it's not about all that big stuff or spending loads of money. It's about exactly, you know, just showing up. Do you have any examples of things you've done for your kids that are little that they appreciate? Like reading bed, or what are some things you do?
I think that we've established some traditions that are important to them. Like every Valentine's Day, we have a tea party. My husband and I both love tea, and I love like fancy china and like, you know, doing things up. And so every Valentine's Day we break out, and I use my china a lot, I have to admit, because I just like to use it. Like, why not? You know, like if it breaks, it breaks. I'm careful with it, but we break that out and we have this tea party, and you know, like the teens kind of grown, especially the boys, but it's something that we do every year, and we sit down. And there have been years when, you know, like you said, like there was no money, and it was just like, let's find out what's in the cupboard and, you know, scrape some coins together and go to the Dollar Tree and get some cookies. But it was still, it's more the experience, because there have been years that I've had a lot of money and did a very lavish thing. And there have been years that it was just like a couple of cookies and I made some special tea and baked a cake. And they don't necessarily realize, you know, when you talk about it with them, they don't remember that. You know, they don't remember if I had, you know, 5 different dishes or I had 3 different dishes. It's really the experience of being together. And even though they complain, it's that, you know, those little moments that they remember, you know, growing up. And so we've always, you know, tried to keep things like that going, you know, things that we always do, even when there really wasn't money. I mean, there was one Christmas where I had $10 for 4 kids to buy everything. And I bartered, and I what was that called? Free cycled stuff. And we stuffed there was a discount store that sold, I think it was like 3 bags of chips for $1 or something like that. And we got chips and stuffed their stockings and whatever. And they didn't notice at all. Like, I felt horrible that I had, you know, had $10 for Christmas, but for them, they just had a great time. You know, I invested a lot of time and energy in trying to find things I thought they would like.
Yeah.
But I think we think that they realize things more than they do. It's really that they woke up and there were presents under the tree, you know, and we sat and opened them and we had our breakfast, and the breakfast wasn't as elaborate, but I still had, you know, that's when I break out my china too. Christmas morning, Christmas Eve, when they go to sleep, I decorate the kitchen and put out all the china and, you know, do it up. And it didn't matter that we just had like frozen waffles and scrambled eggs. They were just excited, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that there's always a way to do it. It just might not look the way you want it to.
Yeah. And a lot of that's internalized, right? It's like we're projecting our thoughts onto them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they don't even have an expectation.
No. And it's interesting to hear their versions of things that happened, you know?
I agree. Yeah. I only have one, so I get one thought process. But we go back and reminisce about things. I actually opted to not celebrate the holidays. So my son, we've never celebrated Christmas or birthdays or anything. And, you know, I was born and raised as a Jehovah's Witness, so it stems from that. But once I left, I was able to make a decision, and finances were just so low that I was like, you know what, I don't even want to get involved with all of this.
Yeah.
And, it's the same, you know, he doesn't even know. He doesn't even get it. Now he might turn around when he's 32 years old and have serious trauma because of it. But as it is right now, he's 17 and he doesn't, I ask him every once in a while and he's like, I don't care. But he has everything that he wants, you know. He gets stuff. And And I think that that's important. I love I love when I talk to mothers who are open to um, doing things just slightly different, doing things slightly different and going with the flow and appreciating where they are in their life and just making it work,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yes.
versus having complete meltdowns.
Yes.
But sometimes we have to have those too.
Yeah.
uh, I'd like to talk about disempowering beliefs with you.
Okay.
Do you have you had any disempowering beliefs in your past?
I think that growing up, I was always, the star student, but I was always the square peg in the round hole, right? So I studied really hard. I did everything I was supposed to. I followed all the rules. Like I honestly, this is the God honest truth. I would stay up at night and read like the dictionary and the encyclopedia because I was so thirsty for, for learning.
Wow.
But I wasn't social. I just never fit in correctly. And so that was something that just stayed with me of, trying to be accepted. And that was part of that breaking free of like letting go of all that stuff that used to go through my head every night. But also I think it still surfaces every once in a while. And in rebuilding my business, I'm like, I'm leaving that behind. I'm not going to get stuck in the, you can't, you won't, you don't know how to do this. You're not the top, you're not the in crowd, you're not the winner. And, some of that is having a great, like you mentioned, mentors. I've had several great business mentors, but I have one that is become like a very close friend and I truly admire, Katie Horner. And I called her up one night in the midst of, like cyber attack and moving cross country and clients not being able to afford by January 2021, aside from the cyber attack and everything, 90% of my clients either couldn't afford me or gone out of business. So I was literally like, everything was starting from scratch. And I called her up and I'm like, what do I do? Actually, I sent her a frantic, panicking text and she's like, we're talking. And so she called me and she's like, you are not looking for a job. You are not listing things on eBay. You're not finding things to sell on Marketplace. Like, you are going to do this. You can do this. So she said, you're going to find a way. So like, make a list of what you can do. And I met with her the next day and I said, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking I can do. And I have like a 6-month plan. And she's like, no. Take out your calendar, find a time on Monday. You're doing a webinar. You're launching this. And I was like, but really, and I didn't have really 6 months, like I needed to pay bills, but in my mind, it was a 6-month process. And that's what I did. And I've slightly shifted from that original but that was what got my business going again. I made 3 sales at the webinar. And I just kept going. I did another one in 2 weeks and I refined from there. I built my network. I built up LinkedIn from nothing to now I have like 3,000 people on there or something, and have become known as a LinkedIn expert. And really it's like people keep saying like, why are you a LinkedIn expert? And it's like, because I didn't have a choice. Like I had to become a LinkedIn expert. I had to make this work. And it was like, this is what I have. And I am going to figure out how to use it. I mean, I had a background in digital marketing, so I guess that helped. But I didn't just sit and wait for things to happen or complain about the algorithm changing. I was like, I need to make this work. And I have no money to spend on ads and I can't hire somebody to do it for me. I just need to make it work.
Yeah, definitely. When you ran that webinar, did you run an ad for that or you just put it up on social media?
No, I didn't run an ad because I had like no money because everything was gone and we had just moved. And so I just put it up on social media. Like I did what I knew how to do as far as organic reach. And I put it on Facebook and I put it on LinkedIn because I had reestablished Facebook by that point. And I shared it with everybody that I knew. And I sent, emails to people and invited people. And I think I had like 15 or 20 people show up or something.
Wow.
And it was very short notice.
Did you do it live?
I did it live, yes.
Very cool. Wow.
And I had like 3 people buy in. And it wasn't my best webinar it was like, okay, like I can do this. it was that little bit of boost that I needed. So
No
I just
kidding.
kept going. Yeah.
So literally just in 1 week, you put together like a package, a value, a sales pitch, and then just freaking flung it out there.
I pitched a course that I didn't even have together. I had a title for it. I knew what I wanted the vision to be, and that was all I had. And I thought, well, if it doesn't work, like, you know, I don't have the 6 months to pull it together. And then 3 people buyed in, and, you know, I was very transparent that, like, I'm doing a special price because you are like founders, and I'm building this as you go through it. And it was a good experience because they got to help me build it. Like, you know, I got their feedback and what I needed to cover and such. So it was a big thing, but it was great. And then I did it a couple more times and sold other people into it, and then just got the ball rolling and kept refining from there into what I would offer.
Of course. Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool to hear, because I've thought of that a few times, but just too nervous. So I always take the months, you know, to plan it out before I actually put it up there. Yes. But every once in a while I think about that, because the time and the energy to do it is so much. It's like, it would be nice if there was some like money beforehand to kind of support the process of it. So that's cool.
Yes. And proof of concept. Like, if nobody's going to buy it.
Yes. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. I appreciate that. So speaking of all of this business, what do you do? Tell us what you do. Who are you? How do you help humankind?
So I help people cut through the noise and get visible online, but without tricks and hacks that either just give you vanity numbers that never convert, or change when the algorithm changes, which right now seems to be all the time. But with proven, scalable, sustainable techniques that educate your audience in what you offer, how to get it, why they need it, through value-rich and engaging content that sets you up as an expert, and strategic engagement with your ideal client.
Wow, that's so cool. What platform do you work with? All of them, or is there like specific platforms that you work with where?
I have experience with all of them, and I take more of a holistic marketing approach where I look at how you're showing up everywhere. In 2022, my main focus is LinkedIn and helping people, because there's so many people on there that are there but don't really know how to use it to its greatest potential. And so that is where I'm starting, but really they all need to be working together. But we start with LinkedIn, and then we look at how that relates to everything else that you're doing.
Very cool.
Yes.
So if somebody we have people watching live right now, if somebody's still hanging out here, who should be contacting you?
The people that should be contacting me are those who are frustrated with, you know, like Facebook or let's say Instagram, that they're not finding the quality clients that can pay them, or they're not finding those qualified leads and they're spending a lot of time on it. I'm not saying you can't do Facebook and Instagram, but LinkedIn is a platform built on qualified leads. 41% of the millionaires in the world are on LinkedIn. They're not on Facebook. So those people who are looking to scale their business but don't want to waste money on ads, or don't have money to spend on ads, and want to understand how to up-level their business in an organic way that has the leads coming to them.
Wow, that's fantastic. Very cool. And then do you have a website? What's the website?
I do have a website. It is scalemybusinessonlinkedin.com, and I can put that in the show.
Is it actually for real? Just like scale my business
on LinkedIn.com. And I'm trying to find it here, and it's not
like this for real.
Yeah, here, I'll copy and paste it. That's what it is. Here we go. Yes, scalemybusinessonlinkedin.com. That is my LinkedIn website for what I'm doing in 2022. And also busy, very active on LinkedIn. And I have a series of workshops that are starting next Wednesday that will teach you how to create posts that people want to comment on, and that get you leads, how to get in front of your ideal client and create a pipeline of leads on LinkedIn, and how to optimize your profile so that you get more visibility and attract the people that you want. So I can leave a link for that as well.
Awesome. Is a lot of your stuff geared towards writing since you're a writer, or do you appreciate video, or how are you doing that right now?
I do a little bit of both. I myself am working on improving my own video, but I coach people in their video strategy and in writing the post, but also in how they show up online in general, like how they engage with other people, just their general presence. I also am well versed in SEO, so I know the behind the scenes strategies, and I pull that all together to make a marketing plan that is individualized, but still goes along with the best practices for who they're trying to reach and what they're trying to accomplish.
That's awesome. So, as far as your story and, the journey, the crazy journey, some of it forced and some of it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of looking back and also kind of taking into consideration your clients and who you're working with, what would be your definition of success?
I've really refined that over the past year or so. I used to keep thinking, I need to get to a certain level and, the keep up with the Joneses thing. Not that I ever bought into that, but I felt like there was a lot of outside pressure from that. But right now it's just having the time and the money to live the life that I want to. And I've realized that in 2022, I have income goals, but my income goals are so that I can create more time. Like most of what I'm scaling is scaling my team so that I have more time to spend in my garden, to spend with my kids, to work with my animals, and just to create that day, like that perfect day. And there's some days like Tuesdays are crazy for me. I'm back to back to back. So this is not my perfect day, but this is building so that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I have more of that time and freedom to do that. And that I can be picky about the clients that I take on. You're talking about like surviving narcissistic people. I've worked with some of them, and I thought that I had to because, I have to take this client to make my business work, or I have to make them happy, and I realized that I don't have to, I've been much more choosy about my clients lately. And it's like, I'm only going to work with the people that I know are going to work with me, and that I'm going to, and it's not just the money, like that I'm going to get the life that I want out of it. I don't want to be laying awake at 3:00 in the morning worrying about this client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do that.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes they do that. Awesome. What would be some advice you'd give to females who are struggling right now with their self-worth? They're just going through some crap right now, and it's dark. What would you say to them?
I would say step back and take a deep breath, because a lot of times when we get in the dark, we're just so deep into it that we can't look at anything, right? We're just going through the motions. And just really think of ask yourself those hard questions that you think maybe you don't have the chance to ask, but everybody has opportunity if you create it. So like you said, what does success look like for you? Like ask those questions. It was, when you're locked up in your house and like all the businesses are falling apart or whatever. And you if we could live anywhere, where would we live? And it wasn't that, we had $1 million fall out of the sky, or, and McMahon showed up and said, hey, I have a new house for you. We were very blessed in the opportunities that we were given, but it was asking those hard questions. Like, how can we make this work? And what do we need to do to make this work? So asking those hard questions and not being afraid to reach out to people.
Yeah.
And just be honest with them, like I was with my mentor that night when I was like, this is just like, what am I doing? We moved my family saying that we could live on my business. And now my business is like collapsing, and I've had the worst year ever in 2020, even though I worked harder than I've ever worked. And And I could have just said, delete, I'm done, and move on. But where would I have moved to, and would I have been happy doing that? So I think that you need to realize that you have more power than you believe, you have more potential than you believe, and you have more opportunity than you believe. And it's all how you frame it. Is that cyber attack where I've been ravaged and I have nothing and now I have no worth online? Or is that an opportunity to say, well, you know what, now I can let go of those things that I didn't want to do anyway, and rebuild this with 10 years of wisdom exactly how I want it to be.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with all of that. Well said.
Thank you.
For those of you that are listening live, we so appreciate you being here and supporting the Her Version platform. Jennifer, I want to ask, is there any closing thoughts before we close up here?
I would say that even though I am a digital marketer and I spend a lot of time on social media, I don't advocate for people to put their self-worth into their social media. We get caught up in how many likes do we have? How many followers do we have? How many platforms are we on? And all of those are those vanity metrics that I talk about. In the end, they don't change your life or your business, right? It's the relationships that you're building and the strategies that you're putting in place that will change your life and your business. And so social media is a great thing because, we got to connect. I have clients around the world. I have friends around the world. But don't put your self-worth in how people react to that. Learn from how they react and come up with, do it strategically. This way you get benefits out of it from your life and your business. But don't hang all your hope on, this post is going to blow it up or go viral or whatever. Because you don't want to be a one-hit wonder, right? Yeah. One-hit wonders, they come, they go, but then you have Neil Diamond who's still around, right? So you want to just keep going. Yeah.
Yes. That's great. All right. Well, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Okay. And so much of perseverance in that story. And a story that we all need to hear, because sometimes, things happen in our life and we are just sitting on the floor and we're saying, this isn't fair. Why me? Why me? And what a great story of yes, right? Yes. Why me? Why me? And I got to keep moving. I got to keep moving. I have to get up. I have a family. I have a home. And that was great. I so appreciate you. So those of you that are watching live, I appreciate you. Those of you that are watching on the replay, please make sure you hashtag replay wherever you are so we can say hello to you. Thank you so much for all of you who have joined us here on the Her Version platform. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast, make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe. And for those of you that have a story to share of struggle, triumph, victory, success, make sure you reach out to me here at herversion.life. I am your host. My name is Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others.